Good afternoon, grade 5. Okay, today we complete unit 4. We start lesson 2. Our lesson today is grammar lesson, and it's talking about the defining relative clauses. What are the defining relative clauses? That's what we will know now. We will read the first example, okay, and then we will know by ourselves what is a defining relative clause. The man who robbed the bank had 2 guns. The man who robbed the bank had 2 guns. Here we have underlined who robbed the bank. Why we underlined who robbed the bank? Actually, we underlined this part because this is our relative clause that gives us information about the subject. It gives us information about the subject. And actually, there's something else, that the subject is person. The subject is person. So, if I want to give information about person, to know some more information about the subject or object, it depends, okay, how I will use it. So I used a relative clause started with who. We use, okay, we say this is the underline part here. This is the relative clause, and I use it for a person. Also, I can use instead, and by the way, instead of who, I can also use that. So both who and that, we can use it to give more information about a subject or an object that is a person. Here in the second example, we have 2 separate sentences. We have 2 separate sentences. What are they? The woman gave him the money. She was so young. And he asked me to join the 2 sentences using a relative pronoun. So, the first one, I used the relative clause that started with who, but now he didn't ask me to join the 2 sentences saying join them using a relative clause, but using a relative pronoun. So, what is the relative pronoun? Actually, the relative pronoun is who. What he means, we will know. The woman gave him the money. She was so young. What is the purpose from telling me that I use a relative pronoun? He doesn't want you to use she. Why? Because we are talking about the same person. We are talking about the same person. So, in the first one, we use the relative clause to give more information. But here, we use the relative pronoun to join 2 sentences talking about the same, because the information in 2 sides are about the same person, and he used okay, pronoun. In the second sentence, he used the pronoun refers to the same subject I'm talking about. So instead of using another pronoun refers to the same person I talk about, I use a relative pronoun to join the 2 sentences. How? I will complete my sentence, but before I complete my first sentence, I will say the woman. Woman is the subject. She is a person. So, what is the relative pronoun I will use? I will use a relative pronoun refer to person, so I will use who. So I will complete The woman who gave him the money. I want to join the two sentences. I cross the dot and I cross she. I want to join. I don't want to use the same pronoun. Refer to the same one I'm talking about. That's why I use what I used who. So I used who to join them. So the woman who gave him the money, I crossed the full stop, and I will not start with capital letter because here I complete my sentence, and I cross she and I go on. So the woman who gave him the money was so young, full stop. Again, we have another example. Sorry. This is a girl. She comes from Spain. He wants me to join the two sentences using a relative pronoun. How I will do this? If we read the sentence, we will know that this is the girl. She, we are talking about the same person using a pronoun. Using a pronoun. Yes, the pronoun here is she. We don't want to do this. So what will I do? I will say I put my relative pronoun after the person I'm talking about. So this is the girl, person. So what is the relative pronoun? Who. I write the full stop, cross it. I write she, no, cross it and go on. Who comes from Spain. This is the relative pronoun I used to join, and this helps me to make it shorter and don't use and cross the full stop and the pronoun she. Okay, what next? Okay, the first one we talked about a relative pronoun that refers to a person, but now we will talk about the relative clause that gives me information, and we used who and that gives me information about the subject I'm talking about. Now I will use another relative clause, but it will be the same. I'm talking about a person, we will know. Okay, the first one, sorry. Kelly always wears clothes which or that are very fashionable. Again, Kelly always wears clothes. What about these clothes? What about them? Which or that are very fashionable. Again, he used the underlined part here is the what? Is the relative, the defining relative clause that gives me information about the object. This time, here, Kelly always wears clothes. Why I didn't say it gives me information about Kelly? He didn't give me any information about Kelly. Actually, he gives me information about the object, and the object is not a person, it's just something. And when I want to give more information about something, I use which or that. So that is sharing between the relative, the defining relative clause for persons and also for things. So I can use that here and there, but I can use only who for persons and only use which for things, as I did here. And actually, I use the relative clause here to give me information about the object, which or that are very fashionable. Okay, here, as we did before, if I want to join two sentences and the two sentences are talking about the same subject, okay, or the same, in the first one it was about the same person, this time it's about the same thing. How? I don't like the table. It stands on the kitchen. I want to join two sentences. that you're talking about the same thing that I'm talking about. So what will I do? I will use my relative pronoun which to join them, and I will use it after the thing that I'm talking about. What I'm talking about? I'm talking about the table. So what will I say? I don't like the table, which I will write the full stop? No. I will write it why. This is my purpose, to use the relative pronoun, not to use another pronoun that's talking about the same thing. So I don't like the table, which the full stop and it stands on the kitchen. So the first one was the relative clause for things that give me information about. Sometimes maybe it could be a subject, but this time it was an object. Give me information about an object. As we said, it started with which or a or that, and he completed. And the second one, we used the relative pronoun which to refer that we talk about the same thing in the two things, and we join them using after the thing that I'm talking about, which and then I completed my sentence. Of course, I didn't use it and the full stop, and that was my purpose for using the relative pronoun which. Next, this time we will use what? We will use where. We will use where. How. Mom and Dad went to the restaurant where they had good fish. We underlined where they had good fish. I started my relative clause with where. Why? Because actually this time I used where to give information about a place. What was the place here? Restaurant. And what was the information? I knew that they had good fish. So this is my relative clause. Okay. And the second one, I liked the hotel. I spent my last summer holiday there. Here, in the second one, here he gives me information using a relative clause starting with where they had good fish. Now I want to join two sentences, okay, using the relative pronoun where. Okay, so where. In the sentence we are talking about the same place. How? I like the hotel. I spent my last summer holiday there. Here we used the adverb there to refer to the same place. We don't want to use there because we talk about the same place. It's the same. I will use where after the place I'm talking about. I like the hotel, and I will write where. Where of course I will not cross I, because this is the person, not the place I'm talking about. So I like the hotel where I spent my last summer holiday. Full stop. I won't write there because it refers to the same place. And also we use the relative clause. Okay, we use whose in the relative clauses. Start my relative clause with whose instead of his, or her, or their. That means I use them in my sentence. Okay, my sentence what? For example, we saw some people. Their car is broken down. There here is for what? For position. It means what? This car. Okay. So we saw some people. Their car. It means this car belongs to those people. This car belongs to those people. So I don't want to use the possessive pronoun there. I don't want to use the possessive pronoun there. So instead, what I will use? I will use whose. Whose we use it instead of his or her or their, the possessive pronouns when we join two sentences. When we come to join two sentences, okay, and the second one, okay, the thing that we talk about is belonging to the ones that we are talking about. In this case, I will use what? I will use whose, and I will cross the possessive pronoun. So we saw some people, I will cross the full stop. I will say whose, I will cross it there. Whose car is broken down, and then full stop. Of course, when I write whose, I don't write any capital letters here at all, because this is one sentence. Okay, this is the end for our lesson. I hope you understood it well and you enjoyed it. See you in the next video. Thank you, Grade 5.